Amazing is the poverty of my being, and great are my illusions of moral superiority. Thus spoke the self-righteous religionists. Everybody wants you to believe that you have to work hard and do all these things to be given everything in life. And there's a lot of truth to that, of course, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't work hard or that you shouldn't, put in the effort to maintain what you have. But it's kind of like this, right? Look at the whole existence. Just look at it. Look at all of the fruit trees. Look at all of the resources. Look at all the rivers, the lakes, etc. Life has given us so much already. And we didn't even need to really ask for it, right? We didn't even need to ask for it. Abundance just is there. Scarcity is a man-made concept. And a lot of it is because of religion. A lot of it is because of the education system and the way that the government is run. This is why I'm at war with these three pillars of, it's basically like the unholy trinity. Now I'm not saying I believe in the Trinity. I'm not necessarily saying that, because the Trinity isn't even in the Bible to begin with, number one. And number two, I don't really follow Christ. I embody Christ's teachings to the best of my ability, but I do not try to follow Christ necessarily. And anybody who says, well, Christ is the way, because, that's what I was taught. Okay, well, that's a narrative structure. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm not saying you're right. I'm just saying, notice that that's a narrative structure. And notice that you don't have to be given everything because of what you've done. You're being given everything because of who you are, who you am. I was still distraught from my Gooner experience yesterday. And so today, when I was at the gym, I was carrying that sandbag weight again, and I was running. And this time, what I was saying to amp myself up was, who do they think they are? We am. Who do they think we are? We am. And I was just, being psychotic, saying this to myself over and over again. And I was like, that's who we am, baby. That's who we am, baby. Yeah, just going full force. Just full force as the Regal Shamanic alchemist with a full sack. Golly. The power, the vitality, the vigorousness just emanating from my being. And this is just part of the process. The reason that you're being given everything is whether or not you're ready to receive it. Imagine this, right? Imagine God, the soul of existence, as I call it. Imagine the soul of existence gives you a mansion. I don't know. Let's say a mansion. Gives you a mansion. And the soul of existence is like, okay, all you need to do is maintain it. I'll give everything to you, but you have to put in some work to maintain it. Nothing. You don't have to work for anything that I'm going to give you, but you're going to have to work to maintain it. Okay. So, after a week or two goes by, the soul of existence sees you not taking care of the mansion. You're not even paying attention or investing attention into the space. You're not picking up after yourself. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You're not taking care of the property. Weeds are starting to grow a month later or 2 months later. Weeds are starting to grow, and you're not pulling out the weeds, and you're maybe not planting gardens or anything like that. How do you expect the soul of existence to give you anything if you don't know how to take care of it or maintain it? This is exactly the story of Adam and Eve, pretty much. It's like, all right, because remember in the story of Adam and Eve, where they didn't have to ask God to make any fruit trees or anything like that. God said, from any tree you can freely eat. Well, that's pretty amazing. And if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, I don't know why that was a tongue twister, but the Bhagavad Gita, if you look at that, it's pretty much the same story told differently. And if you look at all of these other stories across religion, it's the same type of stories and mythologies told from different perspectives. This is what Carl Jung also realized as well. And he realized that there was these archetypes. This is the archetypal themes, right? This is where the archetypes came from. Now, I myself, as the proponent of the artistry of the Regal Timeline theory, because I don't see the theory itself as just a theory. It is truly a work of art that I'm discovering. Like, I didn't create this. I kind of discovered this theory. And I very much so, it just keeps unfolding. You know, it keeps unfolding. The reality that I see is continuing to unfold. And for those that are aware of the Regal Timeline theory, in the Regal Timeline theory, if you're a Regal Change old-timer, you're aware that that which is real is not always true, but that which is real is always going to be true. That's an axiomatic truth. And it's interesting because, you know, again, it's a perception of an axiomatic truth. I'm not even saying that this is the truth. It is simply a truth. Because I think to say that you are, you know, trying to, how do I say this properly? I guess it's kind of like this, right? Many people who are stiff-necked, they want to believe that they are full of rigorous discipline, and they want to force you to do it too. Like, have you ever heard so many people out and about, they're like, well, being an adult sometimes is boring. You know what I say to that? You know what I say with my natural staff? You know what I say? Life is only boring if you make it so. Now, there's a difference between being bored and allowing yourself to be bored, because those are some of the best times where creative ideas come to me personally, is when I'm just sitting there facing towards the ceiling, doing absolutely nothing, just looking at the ceiling, not even thinking about anything, not even doing anything, just noticing the ceiling. It's kind of like, you know when, like, I used to smoke a lot of weed, and I haven't smoked weed for years and years and years. And I remember when I would, you know, take a big hit, right? When I take a big drag, and, you know, you kind of feel that, like, whoa, you know, that's like when it really hits, right? When it really hits. It's the same type of thing, but with your spirit, when you're just doing nothing. The observer is observing the observed, and you just, whoa, you know, you kind of get a psychedelic experience just by sitting there looking at the ceiling. You know, that's kind of what it's like. And so all you have to do to be given everything is to allow yourself to relax. Let your solar timeline interface chill out. For those that don't know what the solar timeline interface is, it's the nervous system. I don't like to call it the nervous system because I don't want to perpetuate nervousness. Now, I know that there are nerve endings in the body, and I know that that's just a name, but I want to create my own semantics, and I want to create my own internal dictionary when it comes to how I perceive my form of reality, because to me, that's what grounds me the most. Like, have you ever read those people or seen those people online who always talk about other people's ideas? They always live vicariously through the ideas of others. I don't want to be like that. And so I'm creating my own world. I'm living my own dream. I really am. Because we're all dreaming, and imagination is really just a dream that we dream together to some degree. But that's the thing, right? Like, your imagination is instructions for how the construct, the simulation, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the multiverse, is going to co-align and coalesce itself to your life. Your imagination is instructions. And this is something that Goddard has talked about. Not explicitly, but he's alluded to it. And I think Goddard would actually really like that. But here's the thing, right? When I'm bringing up Carl Jung or Nietzsche or Goddard or Jesus or, all these other Bhagavad Gita, like Krishna, Arjuna, when I'm bringing up all these things, I'm not even using. I'm just being with them. Like, I hang out with Christ, Bruce Lee, Bob Marley, Jung, etc., all the time, every day. Every day I hang out with these people and these beings. I don't want to call them necessarily people per se, but beings. I hang out with these beings. I hang out with them. And I just trust that I am with them. It's like when you are in the midst of like a really intense workout, like I was today, when I was running, and I was like, who do they think we are? We am. Like, we am. We don't need to justify anything else. That's why the Bible says, I am that I am. I mean, you can look at that in many different ways. You could look at it as, I am that I am. Or you could say, I am that I am. I am that I am. There's a different interpretations that you can put on it. But here, again, I'm not here to claim moral authority like the religionists. I'm not here to claim moral interpretation as truth. It's not how I roll. I used to, inadvertently, and I realized I was wrong, because to do so to think that the historical impact of life is more important than the narrative impact. But that's not the case at all. And this goes to show with the power of your own mind and your own imagination. Your imagination, like Goddard said, that imagination is God. And I think that that's very much so true, because I don't see how we are not God's imagination playing out in itself as itself. Like, it's us. The soul of existence is us, and we are the existence. We are the soul of existence. And people will be like, oh no, I can't be God. And this is a dangerous spiritual teaching, mind you. This is a dangerous spiritual teaching, but it's like, oh, I can't be God. I can't be given everything. There's no way. My life has been too hard. It's been too this, it's been too that. Notice the narrative structure that you're projecting into the symbolic narrative field right there. You're immediately declining your own godliness. You're rejecting it. You can't receive everything because you can't even accept or receive yourself. And you think that because you can't accept yourself, other people shouldn't be able to accept themselves. How dare you? How dare you? It's just fun to have a staff, honestly. Like, it's just so fun. See, that's another thing. Like, I don't take the melodrama so seriously. Like, I was on X yesterday, doing some networking and working and such, and somebody was like, oh, they're literally raping, babies, and they're eating this, and they're drinking their blood, and all this crazy stuff, right? Which is true, right? I'm not saying that it's not. Well, how do I say this? Because this is going to be posted online. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm not saying that it's false. I'm saying that okay, you get the point. For those that are watching the video and not just listening, you see what I did there. But, and I said, well, yeah, they've got them right where they want them. And they said, well, when will the collective consciousness realize that they need to wake up? And I said, I don't think that's the right question. And then this person said, well, then ask the right question, And I could feel that energy from them. And I didn't even respond. I just muted them. I didn't block them, but I muted them. And I just left it alone. Because there is no right question. That's the whole point. There's no right question. Sometimes the question is the answer. Like if you look in the book of Jonah, for example, the book of Jonah ends with a question from God to Jonah. He's basically like, well, they shouldn't deserve, salvation. And guess what? In the book of Ephesians, it says that salvation is a gift. Hello? Salvation is a gift. Like, oh, I need to be saved. I need to be saved. I'm so unholy. I'm so impure. When I look at you, I don't see any impurities. Not anymore. I see degeneracy sometimes with a lot of folks. And I see some, fake SLUTs and gooners. But I don't see impurities anymore. I don't see vice anymore. I don't see sin anymore. I think these are all ways to describe certain ways of being. And you might say, well, you don't believe in sin? Ha ha ha. No, I don't. I don't really, because your biggest sin was believing that there was sin to begin with. That's the whole point. When Jesus says, I came to free people from sin, that's exactly what he was aiming to do. That's exactly it. I don't see any form in which that wasn't the case. And yes, there are, like, witches and warlocks exist, but some of them, like, these are just titles. These are just ways to describe certain forms of being. These are not evil beings. These are beings that commit evil acts. And a lot of people don't like it when I say this type of stuff. A lot of people don't. If you're a religionist, they don't like it. The religionists don't like this. Because I'm seeing through the illusion of separateness. But they want to keep their moral superiority and their moral complex and their moral interpretation as truth. I bypass that. I bypass all of these closed timeline loops that are high cost, low value timelines. Screw that. I want to be on a high value, low cost timeline because that's really the best type of timeline that you can be on, apart from like a high cost, high value. But sometimes you need to be on a high cost, high value timeline to get to the high value, low cost timeline. Whew. It's starting to get kind of warm out here, but the coffee is beautiful. The coffee's great. I love to sunbathe. I love my shamanic alchemist staff. And I love the power of vitality flowing through me in the spirit of the time. I just feel so much more alive recently. And I'm not attached to it because I know nothing lasts, but I'm enjoying it as it is in the spirit of the time. And this is what I trust, that, people who are ready for godlike mastery, who are ready for regal academia, that's where they're going to go, because I'm the guy that people go to when they want to make a really great spiritual decision, when they know that there's going to be something to learn no matter what. They come to me. They come to me. They don't go to some whatever. And here's the thing. If you think that, investing in yourself is expensive, imagine being a cuck the rest of your life. Imagine being the average Joe in a few years when the government has, AI total control and all this stuff, because it's already happening. It's already happening. Imagine how expensive it's going to be to live like that when you could have just invested in yourself and prepared properly for the times to be. Craziness. Now look, I'm not trying to fearmonger because that's not the point. I'm saying that there's many ways to prepare in this life. I just happen to perceive myself to be most knowledgeable in certain areas, such as Godlike Mastery and Regal Academy. So that's why I have these things. I just launched the 48 Laws of Power class just a few days ago. And the Art of Seduction class is going to be open until September 6th. We have the integration of the anima and the animus. We have, alchemy, integration of the shadow, weekly group calls in the Regal Academy, etc. I mean, yesterday it was so great. I had a great fortunate experience of a young guy. He came in and, he's trying to learn to be training like an athlete. And he was like, yeah, this is my biggest hurdle right now. And I want to, learn these things. And I said, well, Bada bing, bada boom. We have in the Regal Warrior class, we have a whole section on how to train like an athlete. And so I just popped in the link and bada bing, bada boom. There's a whole regimen on how to train like an athlete. This is the value of information and raw, unfiltered education. Because I'm not the educator, I'm not the master. I'm simply the godlike mastery education. So, with that being said, peace be with you. Be blessed. And until next time. Whoa.